Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello, my name is Kallel, and I'm from Tunisia, North Africa. So if everything goes according to plan today, well, two things will happen. One, you will confirm, if you did not know this already, that Africa is not a country. And two, and most importantly, you'll realize the incredible potential that African talent has and the contribution that they have in the next wave of innovation, not only in Africa, but all over the world. So last year, I was incredibly privileged, and I had the distinct honor of going to 16 African countries besides my own. And I worked with the Swiss investment group SeedStars on identifying the best talent and early-stage talent in the continent and helping them get their ideas to the next level. So I worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs and founders. But I want to start the journey today in Tanzania. You see, I was very happy to hear that Uber has made it in the country. So I assumed that at least transportation-wise, things will go pretty smoothly. So as soon as I landed, I picked up my phone and I requested a ride. Seconds after, I get a call from a local number, and the guy starts to speak to me in Swahili. Now, at the time, I didn't really speak any Swahili, well, nothing beyond kahawa for coffee, kuku for chicken, and hakuna matata for pretty much everything else. So I responded in English, and the guy quickly hung up and canceled the ride. I was like, nothing personal, I'll try again. Luckily, the next guy did speak English, but he still called me and asked me where I was. I was like, I'm right there where it says I am on the map. It's kind of the whole point of this app. I got frustrated, but the truth is, he had to ask because he was using the smartphone, like many of the Uber drivers, for the first time for this job. And so when he looked at the map, he couldn't really extract all the relevant information from it. And so this example is one of many. When a great product that works globally in a great way might not be the best solution for some local markets. And that left a lot of room for the local entrepreneurs to innovate and tweak for certain solutions to be more adapted. But in other cases, they were able to identify better and identify problems that no one as an outsider could see and solve those problems. And so you could say this is relevant to all the other markets. So why Africa in particular? And there are a few reasons why. So Africa has 1.2 billion people, projected to grow to over 2 billion people by 2050. And 60% of these people are under the age of 24, which led some people to say that Africa's population is kind of a ticking time bomb. All of these guys are going to grow up. They're going to need jobs, they're going to need housing, they're going to need a bunch of services. So we need to prepare for this today. But at the same time, some also recognize the incredible potential of this workforce that's growing up and has the talent to make a change, which led some people to say that Africa will build the future. Or at least, if you have a company, then Africa might be the biggest business opportunity of the 21st century. So we need to account for that. But also we need to help each other define that relationship with the continent. How are we going to interact with it as companies that are trying to expand our businesses there? There are a lot of good signs. There are a lot of work being done all over the continent. There are a lot of tech hubs being created by the hundreds all over in many countries. Places where entrepreneurs and successful people and students and so on and so forth can go and meet, discuss ideas, kind of tailor it, and try to get early feedback to make sure that their products are ready for the market. But it's not just that. The money and investment is also pouring like never before. $500 million last year, up 50% year-on-year growth. And that is amazing. But there's a catch. Most of this money is still going to foreign founders. Male foreign founders. White, male, foreign founders, most of which Americans and Europeans, which you could say is completely fine because the impact is in the continent, people are getting jobs, and so on and so forth. But at some point, when some industries have 80 and 90% of that money go to only those guys, you can ask yourself, why? Is it lacking talent? And I would argue no, that maybe we've grown so accustomed to this negative connotation of what Africa means or an African person means, from war to poverty and crime and so on and so forth, So even the investor, the foreign investor, with the best of intentions, sometimes feel more comfortable giving his money to an outsider, say a European, than it is to give to an African talent that is more than capable of delivering the job. And so it is not the lack of talent that is the problem, because there are many diaspora populations that go and get the best education and get the best professional experience, that go back and want to make a change and start companies and solve problems that they see. But more importantly than that, the local population, people who lived all of their life there, people who started many companies, got the experience, and have much better understanding of that local problem and the local perspective than anyone else before. And sure, an outsider could go and make the job and do it perfectly. But in a lot of other cases, we take a vertical kind of authoritarian, maybe, if I could say, relationship of the problem. I will identify the problem that I think is worth solving, and then I'll go make a set of assumptions on what needs to be done, and then I will create a solution, and after that take it to an African country to sell it to people, which I would argue can lead to a lot of wrong results. Meanwhile, Africans have sometimes the purest of intentions. They want to become millionaires and make money, don't get me wrong, but they also want to do it while at the same time introducing just a tiny change in the lives of 1 million people and introduce a change in their local surroundings. This kind of reminds me all of a really old business example that we always tell in many classes. The shoe company that sent 2 sales representatives to Africa to assess the market. The first one said, Africans don't wear shoes. There's no market for us here. The second one said, Africans don't wear shoes. There's plenty of markets for us here, so let's send the inventory ASAP. The only difference in our example is that Africans do wear shoes. There are African shoe manufacturing companies. There are Africans with great shoe designs waiting for investment to make those shoes happen. And all the other Africans are sick and tired of being portrayed like barefoot people waiting to be given shoes. So what I want to argue is that there's plenty of talent, and I'm going to talk to you about a few examples that I've met myself. The first one is from South Africa, specifically from the townships of Cape Town. These are places with high poverty rates, where everyone who grows here is destined to kind of the life of crime and drugs and so on and so forth. But from there emerged Alan. Alan created Zlato, and he believed that he can bring hope to people his age, and he was 18 years old. He created Zlato, which is basically incentivizing people to have a positive relationship with their surroundings. You can go and clean the place near you. You can go and help distribute flyers to help someone with his business. You can do any simple task, whatever you want, and you will get rewards and points. Then you can go to merchants and claim from school supplies to clothes and toiletries and everything that affects directly the quality of your life, and that creates the feedback loop that you should be involved in your community. This came from an 18-year-old who lived in those places and knew exactly what needed to be done. The next example is from Nigeria. Vivian created Metsaf because she lost her friend due to fake malaria drug. And when she saw that, she had the passion to do something about it. But she had more than that. She understood exactly what was wrong in the supply chain. She saw that every pharmacy in every hospital was interacting with 20 to 30 suppliers of medicine. And because of that, there were bound to be some issues with fake drugs coming into formal places where people go and get their medication. And she decided to do something about it because it was not just a Nigeria problem. And soon, she created a company that handles from manufacturing to the supply of hospitals and pharmacies and literally save hundreds of lives. How cool is that? And then there's another example in Tanzania. Tanzania has a very low health insurance penetration, as low as 5%. People in the low-income population and in informal workers cannot afford the regular plans of insurance. And when they get sick, the bills are way too expensive, and they cannot really cover the expenses to get the medical attention that they need. So Jami saw the opportunity here and started providing cheap insurance via your phone that you can purchase wherever you are. no matter what phone you have, a feature phone or a fancy phone, and starting at $1 per month. And you can imagine how many people got basic coverage and regardless of their income were able to get some medical attention when they needed it. And last but not least, there's Mocha from Mozambique. One energetic team that inspires me so much. They saw that people have kind of a feedback loop that they wanted to voice their opinions to the government officials and the municipalities. But at the same time, those guys didn't get that feedback on time to react to it. But they also had resources that are misallocated that they wanted to use better. They created another app, simple, that anyone can take their phone, do just a tiny bit of dialing just a random message to report a trash or a sanitation problem. The alert goes directly to the responsibles, to the government officials. And with the help of the Mocha team, they actually address that problem. And as soon as that's done, a feedback SMS goes to the same person who submitted that and tells them that that's addressed. It's a perfect feedback loop where the citizen feels heard, the government official uses the resources in the best way possible, and that seems like such an intuitive solution that needed someone to fully understand that local perspective and the local kind of approach of how things work to be able to address it and solve it. And there are so many other problems. And in the middle of all of this, I always saw mobile money being the motor behind a lot of these services. The idea that you can take your phone, regardless of what it is, an iPhone or a feature phone that you probably have never seen at this point. Some of you are young. But you can access so many services, from insurance to banking services, to your salary, to sending your friends money, and so on and so forth. And I couldn't help but draw the comparisons with my own country, Tunisia, where I found that we were lagging behind on a lot of these issues. So, I talked to a few of my friends, and I quit my job, and they quit school, and we went back home. And the idea was, we're going to do a payment app. But when we were doing research, we found out there's a lot more to this. See, only 32% of Tunisians have bank accounts. And as a result, only those have access to formal services related to financial services and banking. And cash was still king. So those banks didn't have really any visibility to how the purchases are made. And so they couldn't really get unsecured loans to the people to buy that next equipment and grow that company, or to pay your employees when things are getting rough, and so on and so forth. So people didn't have a good payment method. But it's more than that. They didn't have credit. They didn't have an incentive to go to a bank. Why would I take half a day off of my life to open a bank account, and then there's no clear way of how I'm going to use it? This might seem reasonable of them. But when we were designing our solution for payments, we realized there's a local approach to it that would make it make sense. We designed a whole system that enables you to open a bank account remotely. So from the comfort of your home, using the same phone that you always use, you can open a bank account and start using the payment, kind of digital payments that you always wanted to have. But it was more than that. We saw that people are lacking in credit. And we had an amazing opportunity because we had access to data on how people use those micropayments. So we wanted to play around and build models to give informal credit scores. They're using non-traditional data. So, who were you interacting with, where are the transactions happening, and so on and so forth, and give you lines of credit directly through the app. So we went from an unbanked person who had no business interacting with payments and digital and payments in general, to someone who opened a bank account, received payments and sent payments, and then received credit to do the thing that he always wanted to do, whether that's buy equipment or grow their business or do whatever you want if you had extra capital. And we needed to know not just the strict regulations of Tunisia and how to make this possible, but also understand how people are waiting for certain things and not others. And that requires you to be fully immersed in that market, which is what comes back to the local entrepreneurs being probably the better fitted people to solve their own issues. So I'm going to leave you with probably 3 major things here. The first one, be excited for Africa and its potential. because of the workforce and the talent that exists there, some of the solutions you might be using tomorrow will come from the continent. And you should embrace that because there are people working extra hard to get those to you. And second, if you're growing your business and you're targeting Africa as a potential place to go, then believe in the African talent and engage with them quickly. If you go and involve them in the early stages of design, then you will make sure that your solution will be better adapted for that market. And you won't have to go through the trial and error after you launch your product. And we all want that, right? But third, even if you had no interest in the African market, there's something to take away here. Make your team more diverse. You're trying to serve not just the people that look like you, that had the exact same background and experiences. You're trying to go to a market with diverse backgrounds and experiences. So if you have more females in your team, and you have more minorities in your team, you will get the early feedback on what is accepted and what is good, and how you should make and adapt your product to fit all of those segments, not just the one you're familiar with. And that's a great thing to do, not from an ethical perspective only, but from a business perspective. So thank you.